Greetings, Fire Chargers, Chuck Blade here, and in this video I am going to be reacting to The Conquest of Canaan explained in 6 minutes by Gavin Ortlund. This video was uploaded on November 25th, 2024. I have seen it before and I think he makes good points, but go ahead.
The conquest of Canaan may be the most difficult part of the Bible for modern readers. Some people wonder, how could I embrace the Christian God if he commanded his followers to devote entire people groups to complete destruction without mercy? Those of us who are followers of Christ should take all concerns about evil and violence seriously. But what if the conquest of Canaan, when it's understood in context,
Those two words
part
are
of how God
important.
himself is opposing evil and violence? Seeing an event in context
So that's
can
the
give
setup.
different perspective. For example, if you only watch the destruction of the Death Star in Star Wars A New Hope, it might look like genocide. You might wonder, why are they killing all these people? But if you watch the entire movie, it looks very different. Similarly, we can get...
Confession, I have not seen A New Hope. The first Star Wars movie that I distinctly remember watching in its entirety was The Force Awakens. And then the next one I remember distinctly seeing in its entirety is The Phantom Menace.
fresh perspective about the conquest of
Or
Canaan
substantially.
by considering first, literary context, and second, historical context. Literary context simply means paying attention to how language works.
The entire video
Many
is
scholars believe that biblical language about the destruction of the Canaanites involves ancient warfare rhetoric, which employed hyperbole in various ways. Thus, interpreted accurately, the Bible is not describing genocide or the wanton destruction of non-combatants. In other words, when we read these stories, we shouldn't envision the Israelites sweeping through residential areas to kill women and children. Rather, these passages are describing a decisive military victory in the ordinary language of the day. There are at least 5 reasons to take this proposal seriously. First, warfare rhetoric is very common in the ancient world, very frequently language of total destruction or total annihilation is used to describe a decisive military victory, even in situations where we know that literally every person wasn't killed. We even find foreign powers using this language to describe Israel's destruction. Yet obviously we know that not every Israelite was killed. Second, the same language of total destruction is used in the Bible to describe the Babylonian exile. But obviously we know that this event...
I will go see that to check, and it would $25.10. Moreover, I will banish them from the voice of mirth and the voice of gladness to the voice of the bridegroom and the voice of the bride, the grinding of the millstones and light of the lamp. Let me look this up on Bible Hub. Go to the Chrome machine and why did I almost look up dictionary? Bible Hub, TechNab. Put the widget here where it's easier to see. And boom. Moreover, I will take from them the voice of mirth and the voice. Oh great, now my video's gone.
Protect your family's dreams under our roof. American Family Insurance.
But obviously we know that this event did...
I ended up skipping neither add. Oh, maybe he means verse 9. Because verse 9 says, Behold, I will send for all tribes of the north, declares the Lord, and for Nebuchadnezzar the king of Babylon my servant, and I will bring against them the land and its inhabitants, and against all those surrounding nations I will devote them to destruction, and make them a horror, a hissing, everlasting devastation.
And kill all the Israelites. Third, interwoven destruction is used in the Bible to describe the Babylonian exile. But obviously we know that this event didn't kill all the Israelites.
Let me actually look at that. 2 Chronicles 36:17. Therefore he brought against them the king of the Chaldeans, who killed their young men with the sword in the house and the sanctuary, and had no compassion on young man or virgin, old man or aged. He gave them all into his hand.
Third, interwoven with the command to destroy the Canaanites is a command not to intermarry with them.
This is a
the conquest
point that
is
Frank
also
Turek
described
brings
as a
up.
driving out and dispossession.
11:23. Then the Lord will drive out these nations before you and dispossess nations even greater and mightier than you.
But why would intermarriage be a temptation if everyone is supposed to die? And who would there
This
be
is a
to
point
drive
raised
out?
by Frank Turek.
Fourth,
I don't know if I've
repeatedly
already
throughout
said
Joshua
that
and Judges,
recently.
those utterly destroyed are still around in the later.
So Joshua 10 verses 36 to 37. Then Joshua and all Israel went up and left. Then remaining. And then Judges 1:10. There's a portion in Judges 1 that parallels part of Joshua 15 almost word for word. Verse 10 describes, and Judah went up against the Canaanites who lived in Hebron, and they defeated Shehai, Ahiman, and Talmai. Let me check Joshua 15. And Caleb drove. I'll start reading at verse 13. According to the commandments of the Lord Joshua, he gave Canaan to Caleb the son of Jephunneh, a portion among the people of Judah, Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron. Arba was the father of Anak. And Caleb drove out from there the sons of Anak, Shani and Ahiman, and Talmai, the descendants of Anak. So I think I think Joshua 15 would be a better fit than Judges 1, because if the examples of there are still people here are from the same book, then I think that's a more powerful point.
Narrative, even in specific cities, we're repeatedly told that there are no survivors, but then we find there are survivors. This applies even when we have merisms like man and woman, old and young. And it's also true for the Amalekites in 1 Samuel 15, who are completely destroyed.
First, it's none, but Saul and the people spared Ahab and Agag, and the best of the sheep and the oxen, of the fattened calves and the lambs, and all that was good, and would not utterly destroy them. All that was despised and worthless he devoted to destruction. maybe means like verse 8. And he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive and devoted to all the people with the edge of the sword.
But then keep popping up over and over.
I'll check on all of those for Samuel 27:8. Now David and his young men went up and made raids against the Geshurites, the Girzites, and the Amalekites. Now I'm going to 30. Now David and his men came to Ziklag on the third day. The Amalekites had made a raid against the Negev and against Ziklag. And verse 18 checks out so far, and First Chronicles 4.
This doesn't mean the Bible has errors. It simply means we're trying to interpret its language in the way it uses it. Fifth,
yeah, I think that is a good. That most recent point is a good point. That this is just what is it called? Metaphor or hyperbole for thoroughly winning, and that these people are said to have been totally destroyed, but still are said to still exist later in the exact same book.
Scholars like Richard Hess have argued that the Canaanite cities targeted in Joshua 9 through 11 are not primarily residential centers, but military garrisons. Thus, they wouldn't.
I think I heard that in a collab that IP had with Ortlund.
Be targeting the civilian population at large by attacking them, any more than the Allied soldiers would be killing every single person in Germany when they're advancing through Nazi territory at the end of World War II. Again, the language of complete annihilation is describing the results of a total victory and an overturning of power. You can see a fuller case for each of these points in my longer video on this topic, but please understand this does not completely answer the question. This just helps us properly frame the question. We still need to ask, even if these wars were not targeted against non-combatants, how is it okay to invade another country and kill people? This is where historical context can help. We have to remember that the ancient world was a brutal place. There was no UN, no police, and no restraint to human cruelty. In the Old Testament law, we find warnings against the Canaanite practices of bestiality and child sacrifice by fire. The biblical rationale for the conquest of Canaan is not greed or vengeance or xenophobia. This is a weaker nation attacking a stronger one, and the stated purpose in the text is the judge for the conquest of Canaan is not greed or vengeance or xenophobia. Now. This is a weaker nation attacking a stronger one.
.438. Driving out before nations greater and mightier than you to bring you into it to give you an inheritance into the land.
And the stated purpose in the text is the judgment of evil. There's a significant moral difference between violence in general and violence inflicted within the framework of punishment for wrongdoing. For example, if your neighbor imprisons you in their house, that's wrong. But if a judge sentences you to prison, that is entirely different. This is the ultimate explanation for the conquest of Canaan, the reality of divine judgment. To put it as simply as we can, God is the creator and moral governor of the entire world. He has the right to intervene and put an end to oppression and violence. This judgment was not a knee-jerk reaction, but the response to an accumulation of evil and lack of repentance over centuries.
That is
Nor
an
is it an
important
ongoing
point.
paradigm for other violent acts. It was a unique event in world history for
the conquest began about almost 500 years after the initial promise to Abraham.
Judging evil, but also for advancing redemptive purposes through the nation of Israel and her coming Messiah. Ultimately, God's judgment is a good thing.
Gavel
Where
becomes
would the
a
world
cross.
be if God didn't intervene to stop evil? How could we trust a God who doesn't do anything about the burning of infants? But the amazing thing about the Bible is that God is also merciful. And in this light, perhaps the most interesting character in the story of the conquest of Canaan is Rahab the prostitute, because her story highlights that no one need suffer God's judgment. God is eager to make peace with anyone who desires friendship with him. This is the message of the whole Bible, of which Joshua is just one part. In the person of Christ, God actually took judgment onto himself so that we could be freely forgiven while he still upholds the demands of
14
justice.
seconds left.
If God is like that, we should not hesitate to ask for his mercy in our lives, and we should do everything in our power to stand against violence and injustice in the world today.
So that was all for that video. Make sure to like and subscribe to me and to Ortlund if that is what you feel like, and I will see you tomorrow. Goodbye, Fire Chargers. Dark Blade out.